U.S. President Donald Trump escalated his war of words with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday, calling him a dictator without elections in a Truth Social post, adding that he better move fast or he is not going to have a country left. Trump's post came just hours after Zelensky said the U.S. president was trapped in a Russian disinformation bubble, after Trump suggested on Tuesday that Ukraine was responsible for Russia's full-scale invasion.
You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Speaking at a news briefing, Zelensky said he would like Trump's team to have more truth about his country.
Unfortunately, President Trump, who we respect a lot as the leader of a nation that we really respect, the American nation, who supported us all the time, unfortunately, he lives in this disinformation space.
Zelensky also said Trump's assertion that his approval rating was just 4% was Russian disinformation, and that any attempt to replace him would fail. An early February poll from the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology shows 57% of Ukrainians trust their president. Trump's comments criticizing Zelensky come as the war between Ukraine and Russia nears its 3-year mark, following Russia's invasion on February 24, 2022. Russia has seized some 20% of Ukraine and is slowly but steadily gaining more territory in the east. Zelensky's 5-year term was supposed to end in 2024, but presidential and parliamentary elections cannot be held under martial law, which Ukraine imposed in February 2022 in response to Russia's invasion. The war of words between Trump and Zelensky comes after a phone call between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin last week, which upended U.S. policy to isolate Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. It also follows talks between senior U.S. and Russian officials on ending the war that did not include Ukraine or Europe. On Wednesday, Putin praised the outcome of those talks in Saudi Arabia, saying, quote, "I rate them highly," and added that Ukraine would not be excluded from negotiations to end the war. Meanwhile, Trump's envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, met with Zelensky in Kyiv on Wednesday. He told reporters he was there to listen and said he understood Ukraine's need for security guarantees.
President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won, that never had to start and never would have started if I was president, not even a chance. And it didn't start for 4 years, never would have started. But a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. They'll never settle that war without our involvement. That's why they did such a great job this weekend. That's why Saudi Arabia did such a great job this weekend in hosting. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably maybe he wants to keep the gravy train going. I don't know what's the problem, but he hasn't been able. He's very upset that he wasn't invited. He could have come if he wanted to, but that he wasn't invited to Saudi Arabia. But he's been working for 3 years. There's never been even meetings or phone calls to stop this war. It's a horrible thing. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions of people have unnecessarily died. And you can't bring a war to an end if you don't talk to both sides. You got to talk. They haven't been talking for 3 years. So we hope to see a ceasefire soon and to reestablish stability in Europe and the Middle East. He refuses to have elections. It's low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, "Oh no, his polls are good. Give me a break."
Хтось хоче мене поміняти прямо зараз, то прямо зараз ніяк не вийде. Я би так сказав.
If someone wants to replace me right now, I would say it won't happen right now. As we are talking about 4%, we have seen this disinformation. We understand it's coming from Russia. We understand that, and we have proof that these numbers are being discussed between America and Russia. So unfortunately, President Trump, who we respect a lot as a leader of the nation that we really respect, the American nation, who supported us all the time, unfortunately, he lives in this disinformation space.
This is outrageous. It's outrageous. It's not humorous that the president does these sorts of things. Goes off on wild tangents and says things that are clearly false. What is really hurtful about this the most is with the sacrifice of the Ukrainian people that we know has taken place. Thousands have died defending their country, and for the president to argue that they were somehow the aggressor in this action is disgraceful.
I think President Trump, on behalf of the American people, is trying to negotiate a peace between Russia and Ukraine. He talked about it a lot on the campaign trail. He said he wanted to bring peace. The war's gone on long enough, and I think he's going to deliver on that. So how we get there, I trust President Trump. He's a master negotiator, and I think he's going to get to a lasting peace.
Here's where I disagree with the White House. To the extent that the White House said that Ukraine started the war, I disagree. I think Vladimir Putin started the war. I also believe, through bitter experience, that Vladimir Putin is a gangster. He's a gangster with a black heart. He makes Jeffrey Dahmer look like Mother Teresa. He has Stalin's taste for blood.
I can't tell what this administration is planning. I will tell you this, Vladimir Putin is a thug and a dictator. He invaded Ukraine. He'll look for another target if he ends up keeping territory from this one.
1 million people have died. And thankfully, we have a president with the guts to stand up on the world stage and try to end this thing. That's what I support.
I don't want to get between President Zelensky and President Trump. I never get between a dog and a fire hydrant, man. That's the way I live my life. I think they're both good men. I think they both want the same thing. And I think we will get there.
There's a cost to Trump and his desire to end the war quickly in that agenda. Because, as he said rightly, 2 or 3 days into his second presidency, Putin's the obstacle. By making this broader, he was saying to Putin, this is not necessarily my highest priority. And if Putin is the obstacle, which he is, Trump needs to make clear it is his highest priority by giving the proper disincentives for Putin to continue the war.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. It will be settled quickly. I will get the problem solved, and I will get it solved in rapid order, and it will take me no longer than 1 day. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years, and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their side. Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating.